Hello, I'm CJ Wellerman, and in this episode we look at how Israel is facing an inevitable and now unavoidable civil war. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. If Israel's unrelenting savagery has led you to believe that you're witnessing the end of the Palestinian people, then I'm delighted to report that you're happily wrong. Because what you're actually watching is the inevitable and final collapse of the Zionist state. Israel won't survive another 2 decades. And you can quote me. Or you can cite this article I wrote in 2018, which laid out reasons why Israel will be swept into the dustbin of history before it reaches its 100-year anniversary in 2048. Pretty much everything I wrote 6 years ago has come to fruition today, with Israel facing growing diplomatic isolation, global calls for boycott, a crumbling economy, internal strife, a shortage of troops, and wars on multiple fronts. When I think about Israel's inevitable collapse, I recall the Chinese proverb that warns that when you ride on the back of a tiger, the tiger will eventually bite you when you try to hop off. The tiger that Israel strapped itself to is Jewish terrorism. Remembering that the State of Israel was created by the violent exploits of Jewish terrorist groups in the 1930s and 40s. But today these same radicals are fast-tracking the country's demise by dragging it into civil war. Even Israel's top law enforcement official believes so, saying, Jewish terrorism in the occupied West Bank is out of control and has become a serious threat to national security. And that as a result, Israel's strongest allies are starting to abandon the Jewish state. End quote. His warning is echoed across the entire Zionist military and security apparatus, with a retired general predicting that Israel will collapse in less than 1 year, and with Israel's current president warning his country is on the verge of constitutional and societal collapse. And last month, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert didn't mince words when he stated that civil war is coming.
Threat. This is a serious threat. Has never happened before. And we are going into civil war now.
His words were echoed by the former head of the Air Force, who said Netanyahu declared civil war in the country by turning the military against Israeli people, which culminated with more than 500,000 Israelis taking to the streets on Sunday to protest against the government's refusal to strike a ceasefire deal with Hamas. Violence, chaos and fear now stalks every Israeli citizen. The government has not only turned against the people and the people against the government, but ultra-religious Zionists in the occupied West Bank have turned against secular Zionists in Tel Aviv and other Israeli cities. The coming civil war will be fought along those lines. Religious Zionists led by Netanyahu and the settler movement versus secular Zionists led by opposing parties in the cities. So grab your popcorn and strap yourself in, folks, because this is going to be one hell of a ride. As ordinary Israelis are now experiencing violent blowback for their country's criminal occupation of Palestine and the war crimes and genocide this has enabled and encouraged, Israelis are now victims of the terrorism they created, nurtured, and sponsored, and not even members of the Israeli parliament are immune.
The Knesset, but the police is not interested in that. They don't care about my immunity. They don't care about my rights. They just care about protecting the criminal settlers who invade here. And you see, they keep shooting now. They keep shooting here, although the demonstrators are peaceful. They didn't do anything. We didn't do anything. This is the police. This is the police of this fascist government that protects the criminal settlers against the Palestinian indigenous people and against peaceful demonstrators. All the world should know what's going on here. Don't support this neo-Nazi government. Do something about it.
Israel is trapped in its own death spiral because the Netanyahu war cabinet shuns any move that would leave the country to an off-ramp in its wars against Hamas and Hezbollah. And mostly because Netanyahu's fragile, ruling coalition is held together by these two men, both of whom represent the bloodthirsty Jewish settler movement in the occupied territories. If they decide to turn on Netanyahu, his rule is over, and then he will face corruption charges and a likely prison sentence. But to keep these two men happy, he must continue to kill Palestinians with the goal of driving out every Palestinian man, woman and child from Gaza and the West Bank. An end to these wars will also mean investigations and recriminations for the security failure of October 7th. But Israelis living in Tel Aviv are now waking up. and they now see that they're being led to their own destruction by Netanyahu and his settler terrorist coalition.
He is going to use the murder of my cousin in order to keep the war going, and this is exactly it. I'm furious. You know, it's exactly what he does. It's his responsibility that they were killed. He could have saved them, and if he just chose what most of the Israelis wanted, what most of the world wants, which is to bring the hostages home and get a ceasefire, Olmert would have been home. And now it's his fault that she's dead. And now he's using her death to make more and more hostages die in captivity. This is exactly what's going to happen.
In a revealing interview, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the war has lost its purpose, saying, and I quote, "We are sinking into the mud, losing fighters and with no chance of achieving the main goal, and that Israel is galloping towards total collapse," end quote. In a recent episode, we revealed how 500,000 Israelis have already fled the country, with another 1.5 million to join them in the coming months and with no plans of return. This will only result in an even deeper collapse of the economy, causing greater concern and uncertainty for Israel. A fear that's being seized upon by 800,000 heavily armed Jewish terrorists in the occupied West Bank, who are ready and willing to raise their gun towards Jewish residents in Israel, if they choose to stand in the way of the settler coalition's intention to annex the Palestinian territory by force. Now, to put this into perspective, Israel was founded in war, specifically the violent dispossession and displacement of the indigenous Palestinian population. But what's really important to understand here is that Israel only emerged as a cohesive state in 1948 because of two notable reasons: that only one faction of the Zionist movement monopolized weapons and therefore violence, and that the Jewish terrorist groups responsible for liquidating 512 Palestinian towns and villages in 1948, the Irgun, Stern Gang and Haganah, were rolled into one entity, the Israeli Defense Force, which was given the primary task of defending Israel from Arab countries. But this move didn't please extremists within the Irgun, who worried less about Egypt, Lebanon and Syria and were more concerned with finishing the job of killing and displacing every Palestinian from Israel and Palestine. This put the Irgun at odds with the newly formed Zionist army, resulting in a violent confrontation between the two forces in 1948, when the Irgun smuggled weapons and ammunition from Europe into Israel aboard a US landing ship named the Altalena. The Altalena affair is referred to as Israel's almost civil war, which is why its memory has been invoked today, with many historians seeing parallels between then and now. But this clash is why Israel moved quickly to ban the formation of militias, armed organizations, and even police unions, while instituting some of the strictest gun laws on the planet. These measures have successfully prevented the outbreak of civil war inside the Zionist state. That is, until today, because 10 months of war has broken this peaceful equilibrium. Israel is now awash with men and women under arms due to the mass mobilization of every reservist in the country and an 800% increase in gun permits issued by the convicted terrorist and current security minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. He and the violent religious Zionists that he leads in the West Bank are itching for a fight against secular Zionists in Tel Aviv. These two sides are now bitter adversaries and with total distrust for each other. The kindling for this civil war has been lit. All that's needed is a tiny spark, and when the spark catches flame, the Israelis will have themselves a bloody and protracted civil war, and one even more deadly and violent than the one besieging neighbouring Syria for the past dozen years. But unlike Syria, there will be a winner, the Palestinians, who will soon be able to return home and use the keys they keep around their necks to unlock the doors of their stolen properties. Therefore, the best thing we can all do is not stand in the way as Israel destroys itself and forever. And we promise to keep you updated on this unfolding story. But that's my time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we kindly ask that you please support our effort to expose and confront injustices in the Muslim world by becoming a member of this show at patreon.com/CJWerleman. We can't produce, sustain and grow this show without your help, and we offer exclusive content and benefits to those who do. I just can't stress enough just how much we need and appreciate your assistance. But for now, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and stay blessed.